Okay, I guess we're live. So welcome everybody to today's webinar. We will be talking about public organizations and the pursuit of circularity. Unfortunately, one piece of information to start with, you will notice that on this page, you will not see Henry Leine from the city of Vantaa, urban food expert and project manager. He unfortunately, for personal reasons, is not able to join. Therefore, we will have Ronny from the city of Helsinki join us, who was kind enough to join us on very short notice to talk about their circular economy activities in the construction cluster. So thanks again, Ronny, for that. And we're looking forward to hear from you as we move forward. As I said, welcome to today's session. Today's session is really interesting, really exciting. We will be talking about what is the role of public organizations in moving towards a circular world, addressing the climate crisis that we're currently facing with circular means. And we will hear very many different perspectives. We will hear, as I said, from Ronny about what they're doing in circular economy around the construction cluster. We will hear from Maija and Marko about a project that we've been doing with the city of Oulu in basically creating a new residential area and considering digital means and circular economy and sustainability in actually planning a completely new residential area. And then we will hear from Beatriz from the city of Espoo about how they're cooperating with companies on different levels. So looking forward to all of these presentations. Before we go into that, let me maybe ask all of you a short question, also to get familiar with the chat functionality that we have in Zoom. So if I could ask all of you to write down into the chat where you're coming from, where you're joining us today from, and what are you looking forward for today? So what do you want to learn? What do you want to hear about? What are your interests? So if you could type that into the chat while I'm doing a short welcome and introduction, that would be great. Then we can pick that up later and talk a little bit about that. Before going any further, a short introduction who Taival is, the organizer of this event. I'm Maija, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Taival, and we are a strategic advisory company that's focused on what we call strategic game changers of today's business, meaning we're looking at topics like ecosystems, data-enabled business, circular economy, and other topics that we strongly believe will drive the strategic directions of organizations, of companies, as well as other types of organizations in the future. And we're working with our clients in helping them to basically succeed in this new normal, in this new setup where all of these things come together and basically need to be considered in the context of an agile strategy process. That's why we have established Digitally Circular as an event series, and why we are very eager to create this community, this platform to discuss topics like today about the role of public organizations, but we've also had other events and we will have other events in the future on how to bring these topics forward and how to drive circularity in today's world with different organizations. How did we come up with today's topics? So going back a little bit in time, sometime back, we did work with Smart and Clean and the city of Helsinki in defining a plastics ecosystem operating model. The idea or the target behind that was to basically see who are the different players and how can we enhance and accelerate the circulation of plastics in the capital region and Lahti. In that project, one of the key findings we had was that public players have a very important role in driving and enabling these ecosystems, in this case, specifically the plastics ecosystem, but also in other ecosystems. There's the regulatory environment, there's basically the educational part, there's the governance and facilitation, there's basically creating the platforms. And that basically was one of the reasons why we thought it would be interesting, both from a public organization, but also from a company point of view, to look at how have different cities, different public organizations been addressing this need, this role in the overall circular economy context. And in preparation for this meeting, I actually came across a very interesting model by Kramer, who has been writing a paper with case studies of 6 Dutch regions, who basically outlined a couple of key actors in different areas. So, for example, in the research and technology development, which is a key driver of circular economy, with educational institutes and research institutes, you have a key role for public or semi-public organizations. When it then comes to the creation of preconditions around policy creation, around creating these platforms, naturally the regions and the city governments play an important role, as well as the country level regulator in that setup. The sociocultural setup, again, setting the cultural frame, driving culture change on a systemic level, is naturally something that is in the responsibility of governments, both on country, regional, and city level, as well as NGOs and other players. So also there is an important role. And then the market creation, where the role of the public player is more in stimulating and triggering the creation of markets. But also there is a very important role in that setup. And then in orchestrating, we see different models. We see either models where a private organization, an NGO, or a public player takes the orchestration role of a specific ecosystem in a circular economy space, either temporarily during the build phase, or then on the long run, to basically orchestrate the overall setup. So with this schematic picture, I thought it was very interesting to look at what are the different roles that public organizations will take in bringing forward the circular economy. So from that point of view, we will hear today different perspectives from different parties on how they have been taking on these roles in different areas of the circular economy, and the underlying ecosystems that are driving towards this. This may be as a short introduction why we ended up here, why we ended up with this topic. I'm looking forward to your questions. From an agenda point of view, we will now have the 3 presentations, 10 minutes per speaker, roughly, plus minus a few minutes. And then after that, we will bring back all the speakers to the stage for a Q&A. And if you have questions, you can actually type those into the Q&A tab. So in your Zoom, you have 2 tabs, one for the chat, for example, for the question I asked earlier, and then one for the Q&A, which is where we will then pick up your questions to the different speakers in the Q&A session. So I'm hoping then also for an active discussion on the different topics. With that, and without further ado, as they say, I would like to hand over to Ronny as our first speaker. As mentioned earlier, he's a senior advisor for the city of Helsinki, and he will be talking about the circular economy program that they've been setting up for the construction cluster. And really looking forward to your presentation. Ronny, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Marko, and good morning to everyone from me as well. I will start my sharing here, and I hope you can see my slides. Does everything look okay from your side?
Yes, if you go to presentation. Yep, perfect.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, as a little disclaimer, this is probably our first English presentation of our cluster, because I couldn't find any materials in English. So this is just my translation that I did in haste. So some of the terminology might not be correct. We will hopefully get the officially translated English versions later today. So please do not share this at this moment yet. So this monstrosity of a name, the Circular Economy Cluster Program in Helsinki, that's just the name of circular economy in construction. And the cluster is the tool that we are using to establish this cooperation in a classical triple helix or quadruple helix system with the universities in the region and all the businesses and the city and other public sector actors. And well, the main goals from our perspective, as we are in the economic development sector of the city, is to create smart and clean jobs and find growth in combating this climate change issue and of course reducing emissions from construction for the city of Helsinki to reach its climate neutrality goals. And I'm not sure how familiar you're with the Helsinki carbon neutral plans, but they're quite ambitious, and they got even more ambitious with the new strategy. So we have lots of things to do here, and the biggest impact is in construction. And Helsinki is a big actor in the construction sector in general. I mean, we have lots of property. We are a landowner. We are a big procurement actor on the market, and we can influence the demand for circular economy products and put different kinds of requests or demands on construction projects. And well, a big part of this is also demolition and trying to avoid having to demolish buildings and maybe just modify existing buildings or just using the materials that are reusable in some way instead of just landfilling them. And well, you probably know that the construction sector accounts for a very big part of all CO2 equivalent emissions in the world. And at the same time, there's a huge potential in developing new technologies and processes in construction. And this is one of our main focuses, is trying to facilitate new experiments and new ways of doing things. One example is that we have had already the first, well, bigger project in this program. That was the Katajanokan laituri demolishing of the old harbor buildings there, and they did an extensive analysis of the materials and elements in the building there. And then we had a facilitating company that helped people come there and get these materials, and they even managed to make a profit, which is very good. It's not always the case. And well, there are many challenges because there are so many actors working in these cases. There's someone who's responsible for the demolishing. There's someone who owns the property. There's someone who's going to build something there. There's the city part, and then there's the government official part. That everything has to be considered, and often everything should be planned very well in advance. And lots of things are very hard to plan in advance. So it's a big project, and we are working together with the other parts of the city administration to really get this circular economy idea and knowledge about different possibilities into every stage of the planning and zoning, and all sorts of actors need to know what's possible. And at the same time, one of our biggest focuses is to create this dialogue with the businesses that work with these issues, because they usually are the best ones to know what is possible and what it needs to be feasible. And there are many challenges. I mean, we started this program started in June this year, and me and my 2 colleagues started working in August, and we have been talking with about 40 of the businesses that have already signed up for our network. That is the cluster, and you could say that there's a really strong will to do things. People have very concrete issues that we can try to tackle here, which is very good. But at the same time, it seems like everybody is saying that we could do much more, but because of someone else and their some kind of restrictions, they can't. So there's a big like domino plate open here, and we will have to try to simultaneously influence in many places. So I really hope that we can get all the necessary parties involved in this big dialogue we have. This is just some background. You probably are very familiar with all this, why we are doing this. Yeah, we have a city funding of about 3 million euros for 3 years. It might seem like a lot, or then it might seem like just a tiny bit of money. I mean, the perspective is that we are working with different kinds of construction and demolition projects in the city of Helsinki. And if the Laakso Hospital project is about 830 million, then this money that we have available is not that much. But still, there's lots of things we can get done with this money. And as I said, we have a team of 3 people and also a communications resource shared with our innovation team in Helsinki. And I think we can probably get a good impact in these 3 years and at least get things started. And I see that the cluster is the big work of all actors. And within this cluster, we will try to create ecosystems focused on more concrete things that are mutual or mutually beneficial for a few actors or several actors. I know it's really hard to find something that's common and something that we can work on with everyone. At the moment, we have about 50 companies signed up for this, and I think by the end of the year there should be about 100. So it's good, but it's also a challenge to find something that interests everyone. So the realism is we will try to build different kinds of ecosystems that we can use our seed money to finance new projects around those more concrete issues. And at the same time, we will be facilitating the city internal processes and try to get as many as possible on different levels of everything from zoning to actual construction, maybe 3D printing something with a startup. There are so many possibilities that we have to limit it in some way. But we just started in August, and there's so much to do. And I think that, yeah, that was all of my slides. But we are, of course, interested in getting new partners here in our network. We will be sending our first newsletter soon, and we will have a live event in the end of November, hopefully, if the corona situation allows that. And I think that was about everything I wanted to say at this moment.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ronny. I think it's really interesting to see, and what you said is something we've also been seeing is the orchestration, bringing all of these different players together and understanding what are the different objectives. How do you motivate all of these players? And if you talk about 50 to 100 different organizations, they all have different interests. They all have different perspectives and paths that they're coming from and that they want to go in the future. So there's definitely an important role to orchestrate that and bring everyone to the same page at the end of the day. So really great example. And as you say, construction naturally is one of the big areas, specifically if you look around the city, there's construction going on everywhere at any given point in time. So, and that will not end anytime soon.
Yeah, and Helsinki has a very ambitious goal in this, but someone figure out that if you can't do this in Helsinki, then it's no use trying in any other town in or city in Finland, because we have the critical mass, we have the businesses, we have so many possibilities because the city is such a big actor in this construction sector also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ronny. We'll move on to the next presentation, and then I'll ask you back on stage for the Q&A later on. Very good. So that was the first perspective, looking at the construction industry, the construction cluster for the city of Helsinki, and the 3-year program that Ronny mentioned. Next, we move to the city of Oulu, and we will hear from Maija and Marko about a project that we've been doing around basically building a new residential area or planning a new residential area. And taking digital and circular economy and sustainability requirements in from the get-go and bringing all the different parties to the table around that. So Maija, Marko, the stage is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. I'm excited to be here, and a special thanks to Ronny for the great start and being on board on a short notice. Super interesting. So I guess we are moving to the north, right? From Helsinki to Oulu. For our international guests, it's very up in the north, medium-sized Finnish city, as we don't have a lot of metropoles here. So I'm trying to share our PowerPoint for you. Can you see it?
Yes, we can. If you go to presentation mode.
Yes. Perfect.
Perfect, yes.
So here. So we did this these 2 projects, and we are on the 3rd one for Oulu, together with Marko from 1001 Lakes and Taival Advisory together. Over to you, Marko.
Well, thank you, Maija, and great pleasure to be here. Well, Michael knows very well that I've been a big supporter of Digitally Circular from the very beginning, and I think this is an important series of events in this twin transition. But yeah, so Marko Turpeinen is my name. I'm the CEO of 1001 Lakes, and we specialize in data ecosystems, enabling data ecosystems. But let's go to the Hartaanseläranta story, the area that we worked on with the city of Oulu. So next slide, Maija. So the background is that there is this new residential area that is currently planned and will be built over the next years, really construction starting most likely next year. So it's an optimal time to really look into what kind of needs a new area might have. Also happens to be that in Finland there is this tradition of housing fairs, asuntomessut. So this is a housing fair 2025 area, and so it means that it's also kind of a showcase area for the city on the future of living and different aspects that have to do with how to make living sustainable, because that is one of the big themes that the city is bringing as a criteria when this new area is being developed. Maija.
Exactly. And for me personally, this was super exciting to see that how the Nordic kind of collaboration and all the smart city development has developed. As I had been away from Finland for almost like 15 years. And last year I was in London planning the circular economy strategy there. And for me, it was very exciting to use that learning and what I have from smart city research background. And I think we as a team, Marko and me, had the optimal setup, as Marko is the data ecosystem and digital guru, and I had the circular economy angle to it. So we were able to drive within this project these big two important elements, and throughout the project to kind of integrate the circular economy there as well. So in practice, what we did, it was the two projects where the main methods were really in-depth qualitative expert interviews from the city of Oulu, the different stakeholders, but also broader from Finland, and also researching international examples. Then we had a very collaborative workshop where we had different stakeholders to come together to think through really holistically through the resident needs, but at the same time, what's needed from the infrastructure and kind of from the bureaucracy of the construction and built environment space. And so it's been two projects. We are now on the third one that's focused on smart traffic and parking. And for us, what's been clear there for the impact is to develop these tangible, concrete use cases, and to focus on a very concrete, like time-based roadmap to help the city of Oulu.
Indeed. So, so what we did was to look into the larger themes that seem to be driving the development, the criteria for Hartaanseläranta, but also then came up with 9, one could say, use cases, or maybe they are kind of groups of potential use cases, but 9 areas, 9 themes of development where digital meets this future Hartaanselkä plans. So the themes or the focus sectors that we started with originally were construction, water and energy, food, welfare and health. And as Maija said, so we've kind of expanded that a little bit. So we have recently also looked into traffic and parking, but we don't have much data on that yet. Then the 4 kind of overlapping themes that seem to be in almost driving all of the ideas then that we came up with, they kind of somehow merge, is the theme of safety, the theme of sense of community, circular economy, and various types of efficient use of data. So we looked from, on purpose, of course, looked also from those different points of view, but they were also inherently in all of these different use cases that we selected. And the 9 use cases that we listed or are listed here. So I'll go briefly through them. So the first one is energy communities, how the people in the residential area can be more having an active role through forming these community structures and really becoming an actor as an entity in the energy market. So the whole movement of energy communities is actually a bigger story, but we were more specifically thinking how would that be implemented in this area, and what are the current energy actors' point of view on that, and what are the data issues. Then communal resource sharing, definitely having a strong aspect of circularity as well. So various types of ways, starting from the spaces, but also very kind of physical things for mobility, for recreation. How do the residents in more efficient ways be able to share resources? Local mobile app was a more kind of a targeted specific idea to have an application that kind of gathers different services in one user interface for people. Smart solutions for parking, we looked into that a little bit, but as said, we will look into that more. Safe services to support living at home for different kinds of residential groups, but maybe especially the elderly, but not only. So that was one aspect. Digital twins, this goes back to construction phase and then the actual living phase. So how do we capture best possible models of the things to be constructed, and how to connect that with data when actually the buildings are there for the purposes of smart metering and maintenance and repair. And this has, again, circularity aspects to it, how to be efficient in kind of maintenance, for example. Life cycle and analysis of construction, obviously a sustainability angle there, how to do efficient recycling of construction materials, also pointing to the previous presentation by Ronny. So this is clearly in the same field, maybe now thinking of the construction time and then how the materials can be recycled. Collection points for food and retail, and how to make those sustainable was a big theme. And then the last one, waste services, smart waste services, and again, clearly well connected to the theme of sustainability and circularity. Next slide, and back to you, Maija.
Thank you, Marko. So here you saw the actual use cases, the solutions that we nailed down together with the team in Oulu. In this case as well, it was clear that as many of you here today in the audience working in public sector, you know the pain of kind of a bit of siloing in city organization, having different kind of needs and perhaps the decision-making process that might sometimes be not the most helpful to get tangible projects going, right? And the challenges of finding the funding and doing those applications. So we had these pains and challenges clearly in our mind, and we wanted to target and help with that challenge the city of Oulu to build a very clear roadmap how to get these use cases in place in time, right? So the area will have the housing fair in 2025, and the goal is really to have these solutions in place in time. And to help with that, we wanted to build a roadmap that has clear tasks, like a task list for the Hartansel and Ranta area that has clear things like when to start the funding applications, who do you need to engage and when for different startups or different stakeholders, what kind of decisions need to be done in what kind of, and really like time-based key task list that how to get things going, right? I think many of you resonate with this, that, okay, how to get this done and when and how, right? So here an example from the circular economy focused solutions related to the communal resource sharing services, meaning also like areas, communal spaces. How do you actually allow that digital service for the area? And we wanted to have a time-based clear task list for them and things that what do you need to especially keep in mind, how do you cover the funding and how will it be really put in place. And all of these different use cases had a task list and an analysis for the roadmap, but we also looked into the interconnection of all those solutions, right? And how do they all come together? How can you drive kind of simultaneously all of these solutions to get them in place in time? Yes.
So as a conclusion, we could say that if you list top 3 criteria or how a new area should be developed, so at least in City of Oulu, so clearly sustainability is one of those 3. Also this sort of, if you build a very strong sense of local community, and if that's the target, so that can also be used in various different ways to be a driver for digital circularity, and that can mean the kind of the energy community thinking or the resource planning use and sharing, just examples, but really kind of this community centricity in planning can help also in circularity. And then the third, so most use cases, as you heard, have some kind of a circular economy angle. Some, you know, are more at the center of the idea. Some are more maybe a side story, but nevertheless, it can be identified. And but then when you actually go to the practical approaches and really want to make the projects and really want to make this happen, so the different means on then getting to these circular economy goals vary very much depending on the different domains. So you don't have like one model that, okay, just use this template and then you will be circular. So you need to do that specifically planned for different use cases, different domains. On the other hand, it is important to think of the needs of different residents holistically. So that's it from our side. Thanks for listening, and back to you, Michael. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Maija. Thanks, Marko. I think what's really interesting, and we don't very often have that luxury to start really from scratch in designing a whole new residential area. Very often you have existing infrastructure. So it's great to see that this is happening exactly with circularity, with sustainability, with digital in mind. And it's a fantastic showcase of what can be done if all of these basically come together and work at the same time. So really, really great showcase. Thanks, Maija. Thanks, Marko. I'll ask you back on stage then for the Q&A later. I looked at the chats, and today we have mostly people out of Finland, actually, but with different backgrounds, from research to company backgrounds to university students who are interested to learn exactly, as we said, about the role that public organizations can have in this shift towards circularity. And I'm very happy to next introduce Beatriz from the city of Espoo, circular economy specialist, who will be talking about some of the cases, some of the cooperation cases that the city of Espoo have with companies on different levels of collaboration in the area of circular economy. Beatriz, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you for the invitation. It's been great to hear already what our colleagues from other cities are doing. As you already said, I work as a circular economy specialist at the city of Espoo. And I thought that today I could share with you some examples of how we collaborate with companies. So I'm not going to focus on any particular case, but I'm going to give a battery of examples that show how we can collaborate at different levels and for different kinds of impact. Yep. So I had prepared a quick introduction just in case we had international guests, but I guess you are familiar with the city of Espoo and how our city looks like. So plenty of nature, plenty of water, and increasingly plenty of buildings because the city is growing a lot. So we are facing the question of how can we keep welcoming our new citizens and offering a good life to all within the planetary boundaries. So we have had sustainability as part of our city strategy for a long time already. And we do have also ambitious targets like our partner cities. We want to be carbon neutral by 2030, and we want to pioneer the Sustainable Development Goals by already 2025. So we really need circular economy if we want to achieve these targets. And we cannot do that alone. We need to do that in collaboration with all the partners and all the players that we have in the city. which luckily is a really good and colorful cocktail. So we have a very strong public education. We have Aalto University, the Technical Research Center, libraries, museums, a lot of companies that range from multinational enterprises to startups. We also have a lot of different kinds of organizations, and you know, a pretty high educated population and also diverse population. Almost 20% of our population is foreign language speakers, which actually can bring a lot of diversity and innovation potential to the city. But I'm going to move on to the examples that I promised you. So I will start with something very, very simple, which is how the city, as we collect all these players, and we can be a platform to actually bring visibility to those players that are already working on circular economy. We have every year, we celebrate what we call Esport Day. So it's the city festival where citizens and different companies and organizations are invited to organize different kinds of events. And this year we tried to theme it around circular economy, because we wanted to bring those players closer to the citizens, and at the same time use this as an opportunity to teach and engage citizens in circular economy practices. So unfortunately, because of the pandemic, this had to be like a smaller scale that we would have liked. But anyway, it is a good example of how we can use the different channels that we have in the city to, as I said already, like improve the visibility of the companies and organizations that are already doing a good job and transitioning and working hard to transition towards the circular economy. Another way in which we can work together with business is to actually support them in developing new circular business models. And that's what we tried to do with our Kiepi project. So we collaborated with small and medium enterprises that tested the viability of new business models in different areas, such as sharing economy, urban food production, and material flows. And in order to do this testing, we tried different kind of approaches. So we had these experiments or agile pilots that has been a trend in the Nordics over the last years, and of course Espoo had to try it as well. So companies could test for a short amount of time, does this business model work in real life with customers? But we have also been trying to work with partners on service design. So if we have an idea of a possible business model, try to develop through service design techniques, try to develop it further and see is it feasible or not. And also we have run studies together with consultants to identify new business model opportunities. So for example, we have mapped all the available biomass in Espoo and tried to find out if there are any possible uses to that biomass that currently maybe we are not taking advantage of, and seeing other business opportunities around that. And this project we have developed together with other other cities. Tampere and Turku have been together with us, and we have developed a circular partnership model that you can find in the link that I put in the presentation. And we have a lot of emphasis on what things do you need to consider when you are working on a circular economy collaboration. Different kind of collaboration again is to be a part of an ecosystem. So cities can team up with other public organizations and private players in order to move forward towards common objectives. And this is what we have done in the Closed Plastic Circle project that already Michael mentioned at the beginning of the session. So we at first were part of the ecosystem as one of the many players, but because we believe so much in this kind of work, like we decided that we want to take the coordination role. So this project was orchestrated by the Smart and Clean Foundation, which was a temporary foundation set up for 5 years. And after those 5 years, we sent a formal proposal so that Espoo would become the next orchestrator, and we are happy to hear that we are from the 1st of August, the new orchestrator to this ecosystem. And what we are trying here is to get all the recyclable plastic in the Helsinki metropolitan area and Lahti to circulate more efficiently. And we try to do so through a systemic approach. So as I said, we had an ecosystem with different players, and we have a value chain and life cycle, let's say, thinking. So we are looking at all the different points, touch points where we can affect the circulation of the recyclable plastic. And then we have players from all those different points of the life cycle, and we bring them together and think of impactful actions. And as partners, we have had like other cities, we have had important companies. We have, of course, Taival has been an important part of the project, and also our research center in Espoo. And finally, the last example I wanted to show you is like how the city can, of course, as a city, like create its own districts in a circular manner. And we have heard very good examples of that from Espoo and Oulu already today. But I wanted to give you one from Espoo, which is slightly a bit different, because we are building Kera district, which used to be an industrial area that is now turning into a residential area. And we want to build it as a circular economy international example. And this was an objective that was set up by our city government. What is maybe a bit different in this example is that we in the city of Espoo, we don't actually own the land of the Kera district. So we are experimenting like what kind of tools can we use in order to influence the development of this district when we are not the landowners. In order to do that, we have convened like many different partners. As you can see there, in the presentation, we have companies, we have like also like public-owned companies that are part of the Espoo consortium, and we are through different multi-stakeholder thematic working groups developing circularity in construction, energy, mobility. So we are, as we were seeing also in the previous example from Oulu, so we are from scratch deciding how can we plan this new district so that it works according to circular economy. And one of the results that we have that we are actually very proud of from this collaboration with different companies and also from all different departments from the city organization is a sustainability and circular economy commitment. So usually when there is a new district, there is a land use agreement between the landowners and the city. And this agreement is used as a way of negotiating, for example, the price that the city will charge the landowners for the infrastructure. But in this case, we are using this tool in a completely new way. So we are adding this sustainability attachment or the sustainability commitment as an attachment to the land use agreement. And in this way, all the players that are going to be developing this city district are committing to a circular future. And we are very excited to see how this is going to develop in the future. But I think this is all I wanted to share with you today. There are many more examples of how cities can collaborate with companies, but these are the ones that I decided to share with you today. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Beatriz. And I like the term cocktail that you mentioned. I think it's a fantastic cocktail of different, or portfolio of different topics and initiatives you have going on there. And I think it reflects very well the schematic view we looked at in the beginning, with all the different roles that cities can basically take in this shift to circularity. I think it's not always easy to choose what roles to play, because there's naturally also limited resources at the end of the day.
indeed.
Perfect. Thanks, Beatriz. I would like to ask all the other speakers now back to the stage. If you could join, and if there's any questions from the audience, please type them either into the Q&A or the chat, whatever is most convenient, or whatever tab you find. So if you type your questions there, if you haven't done that yet, then we can basically address those here with the panelists. One question maybe from my side to start things off. All of you talked a lot about many different players being involved. So outside players, Ronny, you were talking about 50 companies now, 100 companies going forward. I think Maija and Marko, you mentioned that there's different players within the cities, different departments, but also different players outside of that. And Beatriz, you naturally also mentioned that there's very many different players. From your point of view, what are the key learnings? What does it take for an organization, for a public organization, to take this orchestration role and be successful in it? What are the things you learned do not work, maybe, and what are the things you learned are working best to motivate different players, to bring players on board, and to drive this joint interest of circularity in that context? Who wants to start? Ronny, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, my experience from Helsinki is quite short. I can't say that we have succeeded or failed in this yet. It looks very promising. I mean, I worked for more than 5 years in Vantaa, and I was there starting the top business cluster. Well, not project, but the organization of business affiliations with the city organization, and I think the biggest thing is the small things. If you can do something concrete, it might seem trivial or really small, but it's really big if you can actually do some concrete actions together, and it builds trust. And with trust, you can build bigger things together. And on the other hand, it's very non-productive to try to include everyone into everything. So it's always important to try to provide some kind of value from attending. I mean, it takes time from the businesses. If you're sitting at meetings like this, even if it's on Teams, it still takes time from someone's schedule. And one of the biggest issue is that all the cities, all sorts of organizations seem to have all sorts of networks, and it means that there are lots of meetings like this. So I think we can, the biggest service we can do to the businesses is try to combine our forces here and kind of share the focus things so that they don't have to attend everything all the time. And especially with the cities, I mean, as I've been involved very heavily in starting the networks in Vantaa, and already there, it's clear that there's no point in trying to limit the businesses at only the ones that are working in Helsinki. Of course, many things are relevant only if you are active in Helsinki in our cluster. But we have startups from Stockholm and one that's active in Estonia. And I mean, this is a global issue, and most of these things related to circular economy, they don't stop at the border of the city. If we're looking at construction, and the biggest issue there is land masses and stuff like that. I mean, there's no point in shipping this stuff further than maybe 5 kilometers. After that, it's kind of like pointless. So I think that's probably like a city issue. We don't need to discuss that much with others. But on the other hand, all the cities have the same issues, same problems. So we need more cooperations about this. And have this Uusimaa Circular Economy Valley project on the making, and it's a very interesting idea, but it's really hard to find what's the level at the Uusimaa, the regional level, what are the things that we should focus on there? What's something that shouldn't be on the city level or national level? What's the regional level? What's relevant on that level? Yeah, I've been talking so much. I think it's time to leave this stage.
Very, very good point. Absolutely. It's definitely very, very important to understand who to involve when, and also when to expand to new areas. Beatriz, anything to add from your side?
I think I resonate a lot. What Ronny said, like, resonates a lot with what we are experiencing in Espoo. You mentioned trust, and I think that's crucial. And a way maybe that helps to build that trust is to involve the players from the very beginning, so that they can participate in the decision making as well. So it's not just about dialogue and then someone else makes the decisions. Yeah, maybe those were my thoughts.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Marko.
So yeah, I think I also resonate with both Ronny and Beatriz. On the other hand, and yes, so it's very Finnish thing that we can have these trusted ecosystems, communities actually really kind of also interacting with each other. So there is a good basis for that. On the other hand, couple of things. So I think there are though local differences. So kind of understanding the local constellations. What's the role of city versus the different companies, for example, in the region or in the city, is important to understand. And it's not the same in every city. So problems might be same or similar, but then the constellation, how the ecosystem is actually built, can be a little bit different in every country, so every city. So that needs to be taken into account. Another learning, I think, is that that I think it's important that beyond this sort of early stage thinking and piloting, and let's give the opportunity to test. So the city also takes the role of, well, thinking of the phases beyond that. So who takes it after it's being piloted? Who has the longer term incentive to really kind of make it sure that it enters in a sustainable way to the market? And that seems to be a gap. At least, you know, that is a clearly an issue, at least what we learned with the cases in Oulu.
Perfect. Maija, anything from you to add? I think we covered already a lot of ground with.
Yeah, a lot was covered. I think for me personally, it's a lot on the listening side, right? That especially as an outsider, right? We come in to help, let's say, a city organization and try to map who can do what, who has what kind of skills, like from different organizations. For me, it was crucial to understand that you need to listen to what's the motivation of the organization, that you can have that informed discussion and motivation speech, right? That this thing that we're doing is actually matching your motivation, is not against it, even if it comes from the different organization, right? And to do that listening and stuff, and right, we wouldn't always know like what all has happened there and what has worked earlier and where are really the bottlenecks, right? And when you can identify those clearly, then you can do that discussion in a smart way to motivate each organization and to really build on those common goals, and also rightly the monetizing the opportunities in some way, like doing that in a smart way, understanding that, okay, in these things we often have the lack of funding or resources, but if we work together, it can be done combinedly, right? The applications and stuff like that.
And I think that's an excellent point. And I think related to what all of you said, I think one thing we've seen in many of the projects we've been running around the ecosystems is different parties have different objectives. And unless you understand those, and I think you alluded to that in your answers, unless you understand that, it's very difficult to get them on board. It's very difficult to have them commit to the joint targets, because they might be contradicting their own objectives, their own targets. And I think that is something we learned needs to be the first step, to be very transparent and open in the discussion, what do we as an organization want to achieve? What are our objectives being part of this ecosystem, so that then the orchestrator, be it the city or be it another orchestrator, can take that into consideration to create these win-win-win situations across the ecosystem. There's one question specifically on the construction, targeting at the quality aspect of construction and buildings, and we all know that construction mistakes can cause a lot of harm down the road, and a lot of quality problems cause a lot of waste and other problems in the construction space. Is that something in the projects you all have basically been looking at construction in one way or the other? Is that an aspect, the procedural side, the quality side, that you've been looking at? Ronny, maybe you have been talking mostly about the construction and anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the very big stepping stone here. I mean, can we use the materials that are, or can we reuse materials? Because there's already the legal technical issue that if it's set as a demolished site, then all the stuff that comes out from there is waste technically. But if it's just an I mean, it's a technicality, but you could, instead of demolishing it, you could have an extensive repurposing or some kind of reconstruction of it. And if you do that, then you can use everything that comes out of the building. I mean, you can demolish it almost to the ground and use the materials, which is kind of like absurd. I mean, it's the same material. And that's not the way we don't want to use this, because it's just kind of like a weird loophole. But yeah, there are lots of issues like this. But going back to what you said earlier, I think it's a very good question, that what is the role of the public sector? What is the role of the municipalities in the whole process of gathering these ecosystems? I mean, you can see that it's happening all over. There's clearly a demand, at least from the the political powers that be, that we should do this. We are getting resources to this, but that's not the traditional role of the municipality. I mean, we have laws that dictate most of the things that the municipalities are supposed to do, and they get funded to do those things. So this is kind of like an extra thing. This is a new aspect. It's more abstract. And I mean, what we are trying to achieve is market viability of sustainable solutions and circular economy. And it's really hard. I mean, we are, on one hand, we are a big actor on the demand side. And we have all these issues that can we use these materials. I mean, even if you're looking at bricks, if it comes from a school or something that has to be demolished because the indoor air quality is bad, then there's always this risk that, well, can we use it, even the bricks from the outside? We have to process them in some way. What does it cost? Is it worth it? And yeah, I mean, as a whole, the idea of the municipality being the party that assembles this ecosystem or this cluster of businesses is kind of interesting. I mean, we are coming from the outside, trying to create something that's like an idea. It's very far from the original, like, industrial symbiosis or some kind of like thing that develops through hundreds of years. We're here and we have 3 years, and we're supposed to get ecosystems up and running. We're supposed to create jobs. We are supposed to create growth for these businesses in a very short time span. So it's very interesting as a theoretical issue, this what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Marko.
Yeah, well, if I continue from there, so and bringing back to the theme of digital also a little bit more, so I do think that this sort of thinking of being more data centric, building these digital twins, So it actually can be one of the keys to also increase quality. I mean, it is a little bit the story that we heard from Ronny, that if you have better data, you can be much more assured that you do the right choices along the chain of reuse, or the circle of reuse, and similarly when you construct a new environment. So again, you know, if you have better models, if you have better understanding of what went in, what's coming out, I mean, it definitely is, at least it's a recipe for better quality. If it's automatically producing better quality, I think that's a different story, but I think it can be a really an important means for that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Beatriz, Maija, anything to add from your side?
Not really. I think I'm on board with what was said.
Okay.
Same here.
Good. Good.
Actually, I have a quick comment to Marko's excellent input there. I think it's very important to remember that digitalization and circular economy and clusters are tools. They are just tools to achieve something, and that's something that it's sometimes it seems like someone has the goal of digitalize something. I mean, sure, why not? But what's the self-value that the digitalization of something should be to achieve the actual goal of yeah. I think you understand what I said, but it's something that actually you can you see this often in the public sector.
No, absolutely. I think it's an excellent point. I think very often, be it circular economy, be it ecosystems, be it digital, it's sometimes seen as something we do because we want to do something in those areas, not to work towards a target, not to work against some set objectives. So I think it's an excellent point. There are no further questions in the oh, wait a second. Both Espoo and Oulu have some carbon neutrality targets by 2030. What is the circular economy's role to meet these targets? Or is it rather renewable energy for heating and traffic issues? So what is the role of circular economy in reaching the carbon neutrality target? I think, Beatriz, you mentioned that it has a role in the cocktail of solutions that help us to work against climate neutrality. Any view on that? How big is the role? What will the role that it takes?
Yeah, well, definitely it has a big role. We are currently building the roadmap for carbon neutrality. So I cannot tell you right now because it's in the making. So we are deciding what are going to be the actions in order to achieve those targets. But up until now, the main focus has been on energy and traffic because they are the biggest sources for Espoo of CO2 emissions. But of course, we do have the role of circular economy is crucial, and that's what we are going to find out now. But as in the example of Helsinki and Oulu, so construction is definitely something we need to focus on, and we are already focusing on. But unfortunately, I cannot share with you like a percentage or a number because it's in the making.
Cool. So maybe we'll come back to that in one of the future events that we have and look at the roadmap more specifically.
Definitely.
Perfect. So there's no further questions. I have maybe a final question to all of you. So you've now been involved in different projects and different activities. If you would be talking to a city that hasn't done anything, I hardly believe there is a city that hasn't done anything, but a city that's in the beginning of this journey to consider their path towards circularity, what are, from your point of view, the key learnings? What are the key things they should consider on their path to make quick progress and accelerate your path towards becoming circular cities, becoming platforms? I think was one of the terms used earlier, platforms to cater and help individuals and companies to move towards circularity. Maija, do you want to start this time?
Yes, thank you, Marko. So if it's really someone, let's say an individual, not maybe a city that has not done anything because it's hard to find, but related to that value chain, someone who doesn't maybe know that well that what's been done. I think it's on the educative part, right? That circular economy is not something like that can be glued on top, that's additional, right? That it is related to sustainability and your carbon targets, right? It is like a tool and a method, like Ronny said, right? And to be crisp and clear, a challenge for me usually, that what it is, right? And then showing clearly that, okay, these are the tangible things that your area, your city, your municipality can do. This was done to be really, really educative about the circular economy.
I think it's a good point that circular economy is not a standalone plug-on, but it's integrated to so many different topics. Ronny, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I think that's kind of in the core of what we're doing here. We are trying to get the circular economy as a part of the real processes that are being done every day. It would be some, I mean, we were actually discussing yesterday that businesses are starting to hire people that are specialists in circular economy, which is not ideal, because the ideal would be that the core business would be built around the integrated circular economy idea, which means that the engineers should have the necessary capabilities related to circular economy. There shouldn't be the need like special. I mean, of course, it's a transition time, and we need this, but the ideal is that it should be a part of everyday work instead of something that's coming from the outside, or some, well, greenwashing of what you're doing. And yeah,
makes sense. And I think it's something that we're seeing progressing also in companies. So when we started Digitally Circular, I think it's now 3.5-4 years ago, it was a much more abstract discussion. It was a much more it was a small group of experts that would meet again and again and would discuss about these topics. What we've seen is that audience is growing, so it's diversifying. So it's very many different people, very many different backgrounds. We're working very often with R&D departments in the product development that want circular economy methodologies, ideas embedded into what they're doing. So I think we're getting there, but it's a very good point. Beatriz, from your point of view, what would be your advice?
Yes, well, I definitely agree with what has been said already about integrating circular economy in everything you do, and especially from the planning and design phase, because that has a big impact on everything that's happening afterwards. But yeah, just to give like something new, I thought that also another advice could be like map your resources, map your, and by that I mean like the actual resources, or also like the companies and the players that you have beforehand, so that you are able to evaluate the impacts and then decide like what to focus on from scratch.
Perfect. Thank you, Marko. Anything to add from you?
Well, again, being maybe the data guy here, so also, just like you don't want to have this as a separate entity. So, I mean, you know, it's the handling of the digital part of this is not the job of, you know, well, IT department will take care of it. So it's integrated part of the whole solution. It needs to be planned up front. You need to think up front what data you need. You need to think up front what kind of, you know, how do you think the life cycle of the digital solutions while you're thinking of the circularity of the solution. So kind of these two go hand in hand in plan.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. We'll conclude the Q&A here. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the very interesting discussions. And I'll briefly move on. Wait a second. I move on to sharing my screen if I can manage to do that. Okay, so Before we close completely, two more things. One, if you enjoyed the discussion here, we have established a digitally circular LinkedIn group where you can join. I think it's almost 150 like-minded people to extend the discussion that we've been having here. So it's also a place where people share information and where we can then hopefully have a follow-up discussion. So if you're interested, head over to LinkedIn, find the digitally circular group and join us there to extend the discussion. The other point, we have some white papers, some articles on the topic. If you go over to our webpage under the Stories tab, you will find some articles, for example, a white paper on the strategic dimension of circularity, but also other topics, and then information on our circular maturity assessment. If you're interested to hear about future events that we're organizing around digitally circular, around the topic of circularity, follow us on LinkedIn, so you can always stay up to date of what's happening. With that, we're at the end of our event today. Thanks again to our speakers. Really interesting perspectives on the role that public organizations will have in our shift towards a circular world. And I hope to see all of you then in one of our future events. Thanks a lot and have a great day.